Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. I live in central New Hampshire and I garden in zone 5B. Join me today as we pot up sprouted ranunculus corms. A week and a half ago, I pre-sprouted my ranunculus corms. I'll be sure to add a link to that video, which goes through the whole process for pre-sprouting. Please be sure to check out that link. In the meanwhile, let's get started with planting up these ranunculus corms. So I'm going to be planting the corms in these 2-inch small containers. And the reason I'm using these really small containers is simply because I don't have a lot of room under my grow lights right now. And so the smaller the container, the more containers I can fit under my grow lights. The corms are all pretty small, so they should fit in these pots. If for whatever reason I come across a larger corm, I can definitely put that corm in a larger pot. But in the meanwhile, most of these corms should fit in these smaller pots. So again, these are small 2-inch containers. And the first thing I'm going to do is fill them with pre-moistened potting mix. I like to use Pro Mix. I'm only going to fill my containers, since they're only 2 inches big, I'm going to fill them halfway, so about 1 inch deep. And then what I'm going to do is pick out one of my corms in here. They're all at different stages of growth. So since I am doing this process about 1.5 weeks after I started the pre-sprouting process, they don't have a ton of roots on them. Totally fine, the roots will keep on growing. But why don't I show you one of the corms, the first one that I picked out. And you can see that it is starting to sprout. And also, it is also starting to grow the roots down below. Pretty amazing. So again, I'm putting it in about 1 inch deep. And I'm going to cover it with the rest of my pre-moistened potting mix. If I do come across any corms that feel squishy or mushy, that just means that the corm has probably rotted, and I'll discard those corms away. This is so tiny, but yet the roots are huge on it. Here's another one. You can see the roots. Now, I divided these corms last fall, so that's the reason why they're pretty small. If you look out on the internet and you see other YouTube videos, you might see some people that have much larger corms. It could be that they bought them large, or they just they overwintered them and they didn't divide them. And either way is fine. I prefer to divide mine just so I have a lot more corms that I'm working with. And the best part is at the end of the season, I'll divide them again. This one looks nice. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, but it has a little bit of green. Once I have all of these potted up, I'm planning on putting the tray of the ranunculus corms under my grow lights, and most likely within a few weeks, they will outgrow these tiny little pots. But that buys me a little bit of time, and I'll make sure that the lights are just about 2 inches above the tray. And then I will raise the lights as the plants get bigger and as they start growing. Feeling around in here. What else do we have? Here's another one. And when it comes to watering the corms, just like I do with all my seedlings, I will be bottom watering all the corms. You don't want to water too much. You don't want to rot the corms out. You also don't want them to dry out. So it's just getting them watered just enough to keep them moist, but not too wet. Here's an example of one, I'm not sure if you can see it, but that has sprouted and the roots have not formed yet. Perfectly fine. It will form its roots eventually when it's ready, but not a problem. I love these small pots. They come in so handy. I don't mind potting things up, even if it's a number of steps for me. It's just, it's practical in my situation, given how much room I have or don't have under my grow lights. And I really had no other use for these pots this season, so at least I'm reusing them again. Teeny tiny little corm. It has a little sprout, but no roots yet. Actually, it's just starting to create roots. So I have a couple of things that I'm planning to do with these corms. One thing will be to put them in pots on my patio. And what I like about that idea is when a frost or a freezing night is going to occur, I can just easily pick up the pots and put them in my barn or in my garage. Another idea that I'm thinking of is I have some brand new raised beds. I may fill one of my raised beds with some of the corms, and then I would just have to cover the raised bed with some sort of frost protection cloth when a frost is going to be coming. But ranunculus do prefer cool weather, so the goal is to try to get these out as early as possible, as soon as the daytime temperatures start warming up and the chance of frost is still there, but is far and few between. As long as you're protecting your corms when the frost does arrive, you should be okay. Here's a nice one. I plan on fertilizing my ranunculus once a month, and I usually use Miracle Grow, which is a liquid fertilizer, and that's been fine for me when it comes to fertilizing my ranunculus. In order to encourage more blooms and a sturdier plant, it's important to deadhead your ranunculus plants once a blossom has gone by. Sometime during the summer, when it starts to be hot outside, the ranunculus will slow down and then die. They'll start to brown up. And once they have died back, at that time, I can dig up the ranunculus. And if I want, which I probably will do, I can divide my ranunculus during that time. And then I will, after I let them dry out for a few days, I will store them in a paper bag. I'm going to go ahead and pot up the rest of these ranunculus. finally, last but not least, here is the last one in this tray. I wanted to point out a few things. Check out this corm. Hold on. Isn't she a beauty? So what I'm going to do is try to fit her in this tiny little pot. And if I have to, sooner than later, I might have to move that corm into a bigger pot. But it's important when you're transplanting or moving your corms into different containers, bigger containers. It's important to make sure that the legs are pointing down. So let me find another one so I can show you. Okay. So like this one here, you can see up here is where there is growth, or the growth points where it's going to send out the stalks, it's going to bloom. Down here are the roots, and there are the feet. So make sure when you're planting these that the feet are down. That's very important. The other thing I wanted to show you, this corm, it still has some light brown coloring to it, which is a good sign, but it doesn't have any, I don't see anything sprouting on there yet. So I will probably leave a few of these in this mix here, and when they do start to sprout, I can then bump them up to the 2-inch pots. But it's not squishy or soft, so I think that it still will be fine. And I will show you here is the full tray. So there are 50 pots in here. And I still have more corms to plant, but I figured that we would do the 50 pots together. And I will plant the rest of them up. But like I said, I do enjoy using the 2-inch pots. It works out really well just to buy me some time and have those under my grow lights. And you can see here, I still have plenty of corms that I still need to plant. Very, very exciting. So that's it. I hope you learned something, and I encourage you to grow ranunculus. They are just a beautiful flower, and they almost resemble a rose. Thanks for joining me today. Please be sure to subscribe and follow along as I give you a progress on how the ranunculus are growing. Finally, make it a great day with gardening.